I've come to realize that Ryan Day is like John Calipari, Coach Cal in college basketball. Great recruiters, they're not necessarily the coaches that you want coaching big games.
I'm going straight to the top. Just put the stack on the clock. I am Ray Allen's a shot. I'm going straight to the top.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Mike here, Sports and the Real Podcast, coming at you once again. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe and share and tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend, all that good stuff. Don't forget to check out the website, sportsandthereal.tv. That's where the latest and greatest is. Like, comment on social media, and all that good stuff. Playoffs are here for the NFL. College football playoffs continue. So we'll spend most of the day talking about that. And then quick NBA topic. I wanted to pat myself on the back real quick. But let's talk about the college football playoffs for a second. So Miami beats Ohio State. And you guys watched that game, New Year's Eve. And I tell you what, man. Here's my observation. All right. I don't think Miami is as good as Ohio State made them look. All right. I watched that Miami team pretty closely this season after they beat my Seminoles. I thought Miami actually was going to run the table, but then, they take L's. Like, you can't really trust them. Their offense is inconsistent, but Ohio State made them look like they were some juggernaut running game. They couldn't stop the running game. So here's my takeaway from Miami versus Ohio State. Miami has a good defense. They've had a good defense all year. They clearly exposed the Seminoles when they played, and they've had a consistent defense. My boy Jason Taylor from the Miami Dolphins, coaches their defense. Great defense. Or coaches their pass rushers, I should say, not their defense, their pass rush, defensive line. So here's my takeaway, though, from Ohio State, Miami. All right? Nothing earth-shattering. Ryan Day is a great recruiter. Ryan Day is not as great of a coach, is not as great of a big game coach. In fact, I've come to realize that Ryan Day is like John Calipari, Coach Cal in college basketball. Great recruiters, they can get the talent, but they're not necessarily the coaches that you want coaching big games. Maybe one time, couple of times, if they have everything lines up, they have the perfect squad, the stars align, they'll win a championship. But neither of those guys coach to the level of the talent that they're able to recruit. How many years have we gone and we watched Coach Cal in college basketball, March Madness lose with Kentucky having stacked teams with Boogie and John Wall? Like, always coming up short, sometimes barely even making the Sweet 16. Ryan Day is in that same boat. Like, if he has all the talent and the stars align like he did last year, yeah, they could win a championship. But if not, even with a lot of talent, he's going to fall short. For whatever reason, Ryan Day is just not a big game coach, and I liken him to Coach Cal. Great recruiters. They get the talent, but I don't know if there's a way you could set it up so that one guy can get the talent and the other guy, somebody else, coaches. If that's allowed, their egos wouldn't allow that. But there's no reason. I don't care how good people think Miami is. I don't think they're that good. I think their offense is very one-dimensional. But there's no reason for Miami to make Ohio State look like that. And Ohio State never really adjusted till it was probably too late for them. They came out with a game plan that they thought was going to work. I guess they underestimated Miami's pressure, their D-line. They couldn't block them, but they didn't do anything about it. Now, I'm no expert, but it's clear that you can block these guys, so do something else. Quick passing game more. Running, like anything else besides just letting Sand getting punched in the mouth all day. They couldn't block those boys. And it's not the first time we've seen Ryan Day come short. We know about the Michigan losses. Like, it's happened consistently enough to where we can say he's just not a big game coach. So my takeaway from Ohio State Miami is Ryan Day is like Calipari. They can recruit the hell out of some talent. But when it's time to execute and win big games, they ain't in it. Unlike somebody like, if we're comparing Coach K, unlike somebody like, Calipari, like Coach K. Coach K gets great talent, but sometimes Coach K has won and he didn't have the most talent. He didn't have the best team. That's a great coach. Ryan Day is not that. Coach Cal is not that. They have squandered tremendous talent, tremendous teams. Ohio State ranked number 1 in the nation, after beating Texas. And, they supposedly had this great defense and, and all these players, right? And they really get embarrassed by Miami. Totally embarrassed. So that's my takeaway for that game. All right. Next, Indiana and Alabama. Not much to take away from that game. Fernando Mendoza and the boys beat up on Alabama. I didn't expect it to be a blowout. I thought it would be closer, actually. I thought Alabama at least had the athletes to make it close, but the coaching was a mismatch. It was a total mismatch. Alabama got embarrassed. Not much to take away besides Cignetti and the boys. And Indiana's a well-coached team. They're not going to beat themselves. They play really tough defense, really tough style of football. I love that style of football. They won easily. Nothing to really talk about, right? Alabama's Alabama. We'll see what happens with them. So my takeaway from this Alabama-Indiana game is really about Fernando Mendoza looking like Tim Tebow. I know y'all watched that post-game interview he did on the field, and it's like, come on, man. Like, is it me? Am I the only one who thought that interview kind of seemed kind of fake? Like, it seemed kind of like he was a politician, like he was trying to preach, and it didn't seem normal of a 20-something-year-old kid, even an adult who wins a big game like that, right? Those interviews are more genuine. The interview with Fernando Mendoza reminded me of all the interviews that Tim Tebow has where he's talking like he's been drilled into how to perform in front of a camera. I want to thank Jesus Christ, blah, 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 blah. Good. Everyone does that. Everyone thanks God, right? Good. But then he gets into his whole spiel and he's looking directly into, like, he looks more like he's talking to us in the camera than he's talking to, I forget who was interviewing him. Like, just give an interview, bro. Like, be genuine. Like, it doesn't seem like that, to me, this is just me speaking, it doesn't seem like the type of QB personality that succeeds in the NFL. It seems more Tim Tebow, Russell Wilson-ish. That's what it seems to me, all right? Where you're just isolated as a quarterback. You're not living in reality, man. And your teammates feel that. And I'm sorry. I'm watching that interview. I'm like, yo, just be normal. Give normal answers. His answer seems like they were rehearsed. They were planned. Anyway, that's another story for another day. That's just my observation because the game itself wasn't too exciting. Alabama got their doors blown off. And, it's freaking New Year's Day. You expect, a better competition, and it just wasn't good competition. It just wasn't. All right. So that's that for that game. So next game, Oregon versus Texas Tech. I'm not sure what the analysis is from that besides Texas Tech was overrated. All right. Oregon seemed to outmatch them in every sense of the word and every facet of the game. I don't have anything else to say about besides Oregon was a better team. Texas Tech just seemed like they weren't ready. All right. All year they had won. They beat BYU, and I predicted Oregon would win, but I didn't think it would be that easy. All right. It looked really easy. Texas Tech didn't look like they were ready for big time football. And people who called them overrated before have reasons to still call them overrated now, clearly, after they lost to Oregon. So nothing much to say there. All right. So we talked about Ohio State and how they look bad. Alabama looked bad. Texas Tech looked bad. So that's 3 games right there. The only competitive game was UGA versus Ole Miss. And Kirby Smart is lucky he's got a couple rings from when his teams were super stacked. Otherwise, he'll be in the Ryan Day category, but I'm going to leave him alone. What I really want to talk about with Ole Miss is Trinidad Chambliss. Yes, the team did overcome a lot with Lane Kiffin doing his thing and bouncing on them and all that, right? Assistant coaches don't know if they're coaching or staying or going. It's ridiculous stuff. But Trinidad Chambliss to me is the story. And he's the story because I just found out dude is going back to college. And I'm like, yo, Trinidad Chambliss, go, man. Go to the league. Strike while the iron is hot. You may not get this opportunity again. Like right now, he is looking like a legit quarterback. I don't know if he can look any better than he looks right now. And he's looked really good all season. From the first time I saw him play, and then he played UGA the first time and they lost that game, but he looked tremendous. And he's looked really good all season. His passing is accurate, whether it's short, intermediate, or deep. His deep ball is pretty as hell. Reminds me of Russell Wilson's deep ball. It's really accurate. He drops that thing in the bucket. He makes big-time plays. Like, he's not scared of the moment. Trinidad Chambliss, to me, if I were to take a chance on any of these quarterbacks in college right now coming out in the first round, I don't think any of them are first-round picks. Not Mendoza. I know he won the Heisman. I don't think any of these quarterbacks in college right now are first-round picks, but they're going to get drafted because that's what the NFL does. I would take Trinidad Chambliss in the first round if I had to. Right? If somebody said, are any of these quarterbacks worth the first-round pick? Trinidad Chambliss would be that guy to me. A couple years ago, last year, he was playing Division II. They keep saying it every broadcast, like Ferris State or something. The dude is legit. He's magical with the ball in his hands. He gets the ball where he needs to get it, and it's accurate as hell. If I were to take somebody in the first round, it would be him. I would not recommend Trinidad Chambliss go back to college. You're not gonna you're not gonna beat UGA in that fashion again, bro. Like now you have these people watching you, and do you in their minds like, can this kid really play like that? I would take, if it were me, and if I were advising Trinidad Chambliss, I would say, hey man, take your chances now, strike while the iron is hot. But the kid is a freaking player, man. And to think that, he's starting only because, the starter got hurt, that's crazy. That's crazy. So Ole Miss wins, they move on, UGA goes home. So Final Four is Ole Miss, Oregon, Indiana, and the Hurricanes. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest. I have no idea who's going to win now. I know Indiana's the favorite, and they should win, but I don't know if they look so great that they're like, oh, these guys are unbeatable. They can be beat. So therefore, I'm not sure who's going to win. Everybody seemingly, has gaps here and there. So Oregon could beat Indiana to me. I think Oregon can score, but they probably haven't faced a defense as good as Indiana's. We'll see. So Indiana and Oregon, I'm going to pick Indiana, but I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon wins. Ole Miss, Miami. I'm not a UM hater, all right? I'm not a UM hater. I just think Ole Miss is a better team. I think their offense is better. Miami's pass rush is legit. No doubt about it. But I think Ole Miss just has a really good offense. They could run, they could pass. I think Ole Miss moves the ball on them in the Fiesta Bowl, and Ole Miss moves on. So it'll be Ole Miss in Indiana in the championship game, January 19th. So we'll talk about that more when we get there. But that's my pick in the semis is Indiana and Ole Miss to advance. Quarterfinals was really boring, like I said, outside of that Ole Miss UGA game. All right, let's move on to the NFL playoffs. All right, real quick before we actually jump into the playoff brackets, I'm going to say this. Lamar got a lot of heat, and I've even put some heat on Lamar, but it's really about his playoff performance. All right, I need Lamar to step up in the playoffs. But this year, the Ravens didn't make the playoffs. And stories are coming out about Lamar, people in the building doesn't think he's taking it serious enough. And I'm like, yo, man, anybody who's talking about Lamar Jackson right now is not a serious person. As a matter of fact, Are there any serious people talking about Lamar right now negatively? Like, I watched that game Sunday night, and this man made some miraculous plays just to put that game in the position that it was. And he's been hurt all year, getting beat up. For people to say Lamar, two-time MVP, whatever you feel about his passing, whatever you feel about his playoff performances, Lamar is that dude. He's carried the Ravens forever. And for anyone now to come out and say anything negatively about Lamar, they can't be taken seriously. So I'm wondering, all this noise that's coming out about Lamar Jackson, is it really from anybody who we like consider like, okay, this person's a legit person we could trust? Or just people talking? People hating on Lamar because they probably never liked him in the first place. That's what I think it is. But you can't blame Lamar for the Ravens missing the playoffs. Like, it's not Lamar's thinking to join up, even though he hasn't been as good this year. One, he's been hurt. He's not getting protected. Like, come on, man. His defense was trash for most of the year. Even in the last game against the Steelers, like, he puts him in position to win, and the defense gives it right back. That's not Lamar Jackson. So I know NFL fans and NFL media, that's what we do. Everything is focused on the quarterback. But there is nothing we can say about Lamar Jackson this year. Correct. He wasn't as great this year as in previous years, but it's clear he was beat up. But it's also clear that last game he made some plays that most cats in the league just cannot make. He is still that dude. And if the Ravens were to get rid of Lamar Jackson, the Dolphins, I'll take him. The Dolphins will take him. Matter of fact, I'll write stories to sabotage Lamar's relationship with the Ravens so they could trade him to the Dolphins if that's what they really want to do. So they could cut him and the Dolphins pick him up. We'll give y'all Tua for Lamar, Ravens, if that's what y'all really want. That's what y'all want. Y'all want a new quarterback? We'll trade. Anybody right now who's talking negatively about Lamar is just a hater, flat out. There is nothing you can say negatively about this cat besides this year was a down year. Okay, we'll be back next year. But as a leader, as a great quarterback, one of the best in the league, top 3, ain't nothing you can say about Lamar. Leave that man alone. All right, let's run through the playoffs bracket real quick, y'all. Don't want to keep y'all too long. AFC bracket. We'll do the AFC bracket first, all right? So, AFC bracket, funny how things work, man. Denver does end up with the bye. New England ends up with a 2 seed. That was close there. Identical records, but tiebreakers. So, Denver's on a bye. So, let's go start with Buffalo and Jacksonville. That one's going to be a tough game, actually. I'm not sure I trust Josh to get over his hero, I want to be a hero every down and throw pick status. I'm hoping this is the year, since Pat is not there, that he can actually make a Super Bowl so we can see what he's about. Get him a ring. Those fans in Buffalo been dying for a ring. But I don't know if Josh can be trusted like that. And as a result, I'm taking Jacksonville because Jacksonville is more complete. Whereas Buffalo is more experienced in the playoffs. They've been there every year. I'm not sure I can trust Josh. So I'm taking Jacksonville. I'm taking Sunshine. I'm taking Etienne. That defense is legit. They're on a streak. I think Jacksonville beats Buffalo. This is a 3-6 matchup. Jacksonville's at home. I think Jacksonville wins that game. Chargers and New England. This one's a tough one. New England's at home. And because New England's at home, they've always been tough at home going back to the Brady days. I know Drake is young. Whew. This one's a toss-up. But by the skin of their teeth, I'm taking New England. I just think their offense is really, really legit. I don't really have a reason for picking them. Just like I wouldn't have a reason for picking the Chargers either. This one is really, really tossed up to me. But I think New England takes it only because they're at home. The Chargers are really a dome team. We'll call them a dome team. All right. So we'll give the weather benefit to New England on that one. Houston and Pittsburgh. I think Houston's going to beat Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh is looking good right now. They just beat Lamar and the Ravens. But Houston's defense is legit. And because Houston's defense is legit, like really, really good, they're on a long-ass winning streak right now. I think like 9 games or something like that. I think Houston beats Pittsburgh. Not that Pittsburgh's defense is as bad as it was early in the year, but Houston's defense is legit. Like best in the league legit. Like up there with Denver Broncos legit. And because of that, I think they go into Pittsburgh with the terrible towels and they upset. Not really an upset because it's a 5-4 matchup and they got a better record than Pittsburgh. I think Houston goes into Pittsburgh and wins. It'll be a tough game, though. NFC. Seattle gets the bye. Rams play the Carolina Panthers. Listen, I don't want to say anything's a gimme, but the Rams are going to beat the Panthers. The Panthers are 8-9. They barely got in because, that division sucked. So nothing much to say there. The Rams were, at one point, probably the best team of the NFL. They lost a few games recently. But the Rams are going to beat up on the Carolina Panthers, all right? Green Bay and Chicago, I'm taking Green Bay. I think Green Bay is the more physical team. Chicago can score, and they beat them at the end of the year. I'm taking Green Bay, even with a 9-7 record, even with injuries. Michael Parsons not there. I'm taking Green Bay. San Fran, Philly. I'm going to take Philadelphia. As much as I've had doubts about Philly all year, I think the Eagles are going to win. San Fran, I'm not sure of their weapons outside of Christian McCaffrey. These guys don't always show up. Purdy, if you put pressure on him, he's kind of sus. He actually got banged around pretty good last week. I think Philly beats them. So I'm taking Philly. I'm taking Green Bay. I'm taking the Rams in the NFC. I'm taking Houston. I'm taking New England at home because of the weather. And I'm taking Jacksonville because Josh tends to throw picks. Oh, great analysis. I know. It's really a lot of toss-ups, right? This is really hard. Anybody who says they can guarantee who's going to win these playoffs, there's no dominant team right now, bro. Everything is really a toss-up except for maybe this Carolina Rams one. Everything else is really a toss-up. So you can go either way. There's no deep analysis that's going to tell you who's going to win. All right? That's just where I'm at with it. One last quick thing before I get out of here. Couple years ago, 2 years ago, in fact, the Detroit Pistons lost like 29 straight games or something like that. And everybody was making fun of them. They ended up firing Monty Williams. But in the middle of that 29-game streak, I was like, yo, look out for the Pistons. They're going to be good in a couple of years. Matter of fact, I'm going to play it for y'all right now so y'all won't think I'm lying. If you're just joining the podcast, I'm going to play it for you right now. I was like, yo, look out for the Pistons. I'm not going to play the whole clip. Just a couple of words, all right? Because I was like, these cats might be pretty good. Even in the midst of this long losing streak, I was like, yo, these cats might be pretty good. Detroit Pistons have a really, really good core that's going to be coming for some heads in the next couple of years. Y'all can bookmark that right now. They've lost 12, 13 games in a row or something like that. But their young core is legit. Yeah, I had to pat myself on the back. Maybe I know a little bit about basketball. In the midst of their losing streak, I was like, yo, Cade Cunningham is nice. When people were trying to say maybe Evan Mobley should have gone first and Cade Cunningham was getting hurt. And I was like, yo, Cade Cunningham is nice and he's going to be a problem. And he is a problem now. And I was like, yo, Jalen Duren is nice. He rebounds. He's strong. He defends. He just needs to get better at scoring around the basket, and he's improving. He's still young. Jalen Duren is nice. And Isaiah Stewart, Beef Stew, is nice. Tough. They got a nice tough. Jaden Ivey, who at the time was a starter, is not even starting anymore right now, is a baller. Obviously, they picked up other pieces, right, and surrounded them with shooters and playmakers and things like that. Detroit has a complete team, probably the most complete team in the Eastern Conference. Last 2 games, they beat Cleveland and they beat the Knicks. I know people are going to say there's injuries to Cleveland, and Detroit has the best record in the Eastern Conference for a reason. They can score, and they can defend, and they play tough. That stuff wins in the playoffs. Yes, they're still mostly a young team, but they had that experience last year. I don't see anybody this year who we're going to be like, ooh, the Pistons should be afraid of X, Y, Z. No, the Pistons are legit. I told y'all a couple years ago them boys was coming, and they are here. They are here. Second best record in the NBA behind OKC. Nobody is going to want to play the Pistons in the playoffs, and they're just going to continue to get better. Cunningham's definitely an all-star, maybe all-NBA player. Duran's an all-star. If they continue to play like this, see y'all in June against OKC or whoever comes out the West. All right? So, yeah, I'm going to pat myself on the back. Your boy knows some hoops. All right? If you don't watch them play, you got to watch them boys play. Like, their toughness, at least for me, it's not always pretty, but the toughness, how they play basketball, like that's J.B. Bickerstaff's coaching, his imprint is like all over that, and you can see it. So, shout out to the Pistons, man. Y'all got a real squad. All right? Y'all dealing with your own injuries. For people who talking about injuries with the Cavs, like Pistons had injuries. Jalen Duren didn't play last game, and they still beat the Knicks pretty easily. So shout out to the Pistons. I'll definitely be talking about them more as the season goes on. But wanted to stop right here and give them the shout out because after beating the Cavs, who were supposed to be one of the best teams in the conference, beating the Knicks, who was supposed to be the favorite in the conference, like this team can go places. And I wanted to pause to pat myself on the back and to give kudos to the Detroit Pistons, man. Great squad. I want to see how they close out the year. All right, I'm gonna leave it there, y'all. Appreciate y'all hopping on as always, spending a few minutes with your boy. Have a great week. I'm gonna catch you guys next time. Mike, sports on the real. Peace.
I'm going straight to the top. Just put the stack on the clock. I am Ray Allen's a shot. I'm going straight to the top.